One of the things, I was interested in your take on this, one of the cities, well actually the city that chipped in the largest pool of money to take advantage of the road funds through that bond issue was League City.
Right.
I'm interested in your take on that. Would you have done, would you have financed road work that way through a bond issue?
Well, road work, I'm not sure what other financing options you have available to you other than bond issues for road work. And at some point, that's possibly your only option for funding road work. Back to the road work, however, I feel like we were a little short-sighted. The interchange at 646 and I-45 is 18 months complete, and it's already out of date. It'll take you 3 or 4 light cycles to turn eastbound on 646. So I'm critical of all government of this, not just Galveston County.
Mm-hmm.
I think they plan for the traffic of 2000 right now. Well, we don't have that. We need to plan for the traffic of 2020 because the incremental cost to make this a bigger interchange is not that much more.
Mm-hmm.
And we just need to have a little more forward thinking. We can see where the growth is. I can tell you for a fact that south of 646 is going to be heavily developed 10 years from now. Well, I can tell you for a fact, I can make a reasonable assumption.
Mm-hmm.
And let's plan for the growth that we're going to have, not the growth that we've had up until now.
What would you do? What would you do to help League City? And that to me, although I live in Galveston, that to me was arguably the most interesting part of that whole bond project, just because, frankly, the traffic there, the traffic problem that they were trying to fix are just spectacular. I mean, you mentioned that 646 is
Yes.
bad, and I will sure agree, but
Yes.
I've been at 5 Points.
You've got the same situation coming south on Egret Bay, 3 to 4 light cycles at rush hour.
So here is something that you would hope that government would try to fix, and obviously any fix on a problem like that is going to be expensive. What would you do?
Well, unfortunately, I was not able to attend the public meeting they had on the 22nd, I think it was, so I'm not sure. I'm trying to collect information. I was told secondhand that they floated 3 proposals, a roundabout, a flyover, and I know what the third proposal was. So I need to get a little more educated on that. That is, I live in League City. I live a mile and a half from 5 Points, and yes, it's a nightmare, and I hope League City addresses it, and I don't have any objection to the county participating somewhat, but at the end of the day, that's a League City issue. One thing that they will be able to do when the census comes out, they can time the traffic lights. They're not allowed to do that until they have a population of over 50,000. So once the census comes out and certifies us as 78,000 or whatever it's going to be, then they can time the traffic lights, because you cannot drive down 518 without catching every single one of them.
The county bond issue was well over $100 million. And where would, in your estimation, where would be a comfortable level of debt for the county to assume?
A comfortable level of debt, I would say, look at it similar to what a homeowner or an individual family would look at, and that says we can assume a home note of approximately 2.5, 3 times our annual income. I think that's reasonable, and that puts us in the $200 to $300 million ballpark, and that's something we should shoot for, to get down there or below that. Ideally, I'd like to have 0 debt. That's not realistic. It's not realistic for an individual. It's not realistic for a county.
As I had heard you from what you mentioned before, it's not. It is when you add on top of that the CO, the certificates of obligation on top of that.
That's correct.
That's where your major concern comes in. It's not so much for the bond issue itself, although there are some concerns with that. Is more of the non-voter approved.
At least a bond issue has to go in front of voters.
Right.
At least they have to vote on it. They don't need to vote on the CO. And like I said, it's a cumbersome and nearly impossible process to stop the CO. So I would like to see an elimination of certificates of obligation, and except in an extreme emergency, which I can't even imagine. If I can't go to the taxpayers and convince them that I need this money and here's what it will be spent on, and it'll be spent efficiently. And I think that's part of the current attitude among voters. You're wasting our money. We're not going to give you more because you waste it. You're not good stewards of our money. So if I can't go to you and convince you that we have done a good job with your money and will continue to do a good job, and therefore we need this amount of money to accomplish this exact thing, then I shouldn't be able to take your money from you.
After the storm, it appeared for a while that UTMB would pretty much disappear, at least as the institution that we know.
Right.
There was really a clear message from key legislative leaders that Galveston County had to come up with some tax money that would pay a greater share of the expense of purely local folks who were being treated there.
Right.
Craig Allen used up probably a lot of political capital, and Larry Taylor too in the legislature, trying to get a deal that would, with the different parties, legislators, the UT system, that would try to get that built back. They were saying that absolutely have to have some skin in the game, as
right.
the phrase went at the time. If you'd have been sitting there in that seat then, what would you have done?
Obviously, this is slightly unfair because I get the Monday morning quarterback now, so I'm going to say that up front. I have a copy of that bill in my book of knowledge here. The bill doesn't tell you how much you have to allot for the funding of the 100% FPL. It also doesn't give you a deadline. So here Monday morning, I would say 1 cent would do it. 1 cent, because it talks about designated funds, I believe is the term they used. 1 cent would accomplish the designated funds. The legislature, by the way, is now on a 2-year break, so we have accomplished what they told us to accomplish. I also would like to look a lot harder at a hospital district. I think the sentiment was a hospital district's going to fail, so let's don't try it. And I don't know that that was the right approach. I think, again, the taxpayer should have a say in what's going on. Along with a vote on a hospital district would come an education program. The hospital district will accomplish this, and it will cost you this, and it won't do this, and it won't cost you this. So putting it out for the entire county to vote on, an educated electorate, I don't see the downside to that.
That's an interesting idea. Do you think that idea could have been so?
I believe it could have, yes. I don't, the people that I talk to, sure, because the biggest question is, what does that mean? If I don't know, I'm voting no. So what does it mean? Yeah, you have to educate the people and then let them make the decision. And if 80% of the people say no, then it seems wrong that Commissioner's Court says, well, we don't care what y'all want, here's what you're getting.
And I've just got to ask too, don't you think if we'd have come back with a 1 cent designated rate, I mean, don't you think that at least some of the legislators would have thought we were being kind of smart aleck? You know,
Possibly, but if you wanted a specific rate, you should put it in here. We've accomplished what you told us to do. So if you wanted 3 cents, you should have designated 3 cents.
That's what came to kind of call the legislature's bluff. That was the talk. But even Larry Taylor, who the chairman of the Republican caucus, said
right.
That's not going to work. I mean, he said, don't play chicken with the legislature.
Okay, well, I didn't have that information.
Right, as I said. Matter of fact, he wrote a letter to the county commissioners that, and in several interviews said, don't play chicken with us doing that. But I'm interested on what you talked about the hospital district. If at that time Mark Henry is county judge,
Right.
you do have that threat looming from the legislature. How do you go out and sell a hospital district?
Well, first of all, you've got to assemble the facts. You've got to assemble what is factually correct and what is myth. You did a great job with the BP stories. You know, here's what was reported and here's the truth, and that's what you've got to do. Here is what a hospital district will cost you, the taxpayer. Here's what it will provide you, the taxpayer, and you need to lay it out for them. I think people are certainly now they're far more engaged than they've been in a long time, but they're interested and they can make an informed decision. And once you put that out there for them, then allow them to vote on it.
So you discount the thought that no matter what, folks were just going to vote against, they just didn't want new taxes. You thought it could have been solved.
I discount the idea that they would have overwhelmingly would have no. Now, I think they would have no education.
Right.
If you just said there's a proposal on the ballot, yes or no, yes, I think I'd have gone down in flames.